Here at Point Loma Nazarene University, we have been spending time investigating a variety of strategies that increase student learning, that would make it more real and relevant to their lives, would push them to higher level thinking about the work that they're doing. And one of those strategies is using student-created video.
Well, I wanted students to be more active in the process of building content. And we had previous assignments where students went and watched tutorial videos that other people had created, and those were getting boring and stale and they cost money. And so it was a combination of those things. This is a key element to the course. Students have to learn how to do the injury evaluation process. So I wanted to design like a signature assignment around that key objective. And I wanted to use an active pedagogy to do it. So students were doing work before class, outside of class, so that they came to class with previous knowledge and we could go deeper.
In the past, I typically had them do 1 or 2 writing assignments throughout the semester, and then I would do a final exam. And what I found at the end of the final exam, particularly the lab practical exam, is that scores were higher. And so I started thinking, like, is it the videos? Is it because I'm actually making them do something outside of class? When I did start implementing them in the lab classes, is that they actually perform better on their lab practicals because each student, in my mind, had a better understanding of that particular skill.
Our video was a first responder video, so in an emergency situation, what my role as an athletic trainer would be. So we had to research the steps that go in order of an emergency situation and make sure they were correct and accurate so that a patient's life wouldn't be in danger.
I think the advantages you get with doing a video project, especially like the one Dr. Cosby gave us, is that it's more hands-on and you actually have to go out and you have to find the information yourself. And I think that helps a lot with, as far as the student goes, being able to research for themselves and gain their own knowledge instead of always relying on the professor for the knowledge. And it helps us to kind of get a broader spectrum of the topic that we're focusing on. Because of the video, I now know so much more about special testing for the leg and for the knee, and I know a broader spectrum of the actual topic.
As far as group dynamics, typically in a classroom you have students come in and they just sit in the same seat in the same row every time, and you see them in the same place. And what I saw was when they formed the groups that they actually started to come in and sit next to each other, each group member. And so I thought, okay, now that's creating cohesiveness in my classroom, something that I never would have thought would have. So I started to see that. And then what I also saw is that our students were actually speaking the language, right? Because they had done the video, and now they can, instead of saying, you know, I hurt my ankle, they could say an ankle sprain, or, you know, he hurt his quad. They could say a quad strain or a hamstring strain. And so what I saw is not only cohesiveness, but collegiality amongst each other, in that they now understood and could speak the language to one another.
I really believe in a concept called transfer of learning, which maintains that unless you can take what you've learned and translate it into a different context, that you never really learned it. So I've always been really interested in all the assignments and projects my students do, in having them take what they're learning and put it into some other format. In my philosophy of ed class, I chose video as the manner to do that. And by them taking what they've learned about philosophy and how that impacts them and putting it into a video, it causes the learning to deepen and be more rich, because they're taking what they know, and instead of just regurgitating it, they're putting it in a different format.
When I'm comparing this assignment to one of writing, there are many, many differences and very few similarities, but the similarities are the important ones. And that being that the purpose of the assignment was to show my understanding. So I could have done that through writing, or I could have done it this way. Through writing, I mean, by the time you're in graduate school, you have written so many papers. It is practically automacy at that point. You answer the prompt. Yes, I can answer a prompt. We're forced to write so much that the meaningfulness of the assignment is taken away by the fact that we have to sit there and type another paper. So for me, the differences were just amazing. Multisensory is the first thing that comes to mind. I'm auditorily stimulated, I'm visually stimulated, and I'm being able to express myself through all of those modalities. But like I said, the purpose is still the same, and maybe even more so, because I think that I could better represent myself through those mediums than I could through writing. And I consider myself to be a good writer, but like I said before, it becomes so automatic through the education process, it becomes redundant. And I would never pull out an old essay and show it to a future boss or a prospective boss or a parent at parent night. It would be ridiculous. But this is a product that I can proudly show to both future employers and parents when the time is right.
My Education Philosophy, starring David Lausch.
The overall concept for my iMovie was I personalized it to myself. So I combined all these elements, segments, and information into the movie, into a narrative that explained about myself. And I guess that also then ties into the research component of how is it different from a research paper, is that it told my story of who I am, but it also integrated in the content that we learned in class. So it's different than a research paper. Research paper, you don't get to hear the author, the narrator. In an iMovie or any type of project like this, you get to really hear and feel who that person is.
People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you, you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
The thing I really like seeing with a project such as video is that they have to rely on something that they're not very comfortable with, and they have to trust themselves as learners, and they have to produce something that's new and different because they're so used to the typical pattern of I write a paper or I take a test, but doing this is something different. And I see them change within the 8 weeks we have them into something new inside themselves, more confidence, more energy, more creativity, and people emerge who I wouldn't think would be the most creative maybe, and they are incredibly creative, and I would have missed that if they had just written a paper.